My guest in the Nimataion today is Daniel Harms, and together we're spinning a yarn. Daniel, you're an author and librarian, and I'm glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, what has been your favorite childhood story?
Well, I don't know if it quite counts as a story, but the book I'm going to talk about today is one that had so much influence on me that it is just astounding, and it's still having an impact. And that is the third edition of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game,
Oh,
in
yes.
the Games Workshop publication of that. Um, So, this is how I was introduced to this. I was already into role-playing games at the time. This was pre-internet, so it was hard to figure out what exactly was out there, because you couldn't just go online or have people tell you about it. A lot of this was, mail order and word of mouth and things like that. But I'd finally found a shop in Lexington, Kentucky that was called the Rusty Scabbard. I think it's still around. And I went in there one day and I was just looking at various books and I just saw this one. I don't know if all of your readers are going to be able to, or watchers, can people, I'm sorry, can people, are people going to be listening to this as a podcast?
No, they will see it as a YouTube video.
Okay, so I just need to hold this up. I don't
Yes.
really need to go into describing what's on the cover, but the cover is
Thank you.
pretty spectacular. You've got these people, and they're going up to this old manor up on the hill, the sort of thing you don't often see in the States at all. And then you've got this tentacle trying to chase them. And I opened this up, and I started looking through it, and I've got these black and white illustrations of all these monsters, and you've got, weird books, and it's about people actually who are not trying to necessarily fight the monster head on, but to try to find a creative way to defeat it, or at least just to get away from it.
To
And I was like,
survive.
this is the sort of thing I could get into.
Mhm.
And so I took it and I brought it home and I read it and I read it again because I would read these books multiple times. And it just kind of captured my imagination, and it sort of tossed me into this world of horror and trying to figure it out for myself. Um, you
Did
want
you
me,
know Lovecraft at the time?
I didn't know Lovecraft
Oh,
at
me
the
too.
time, and so I was like, okay, well, I've got this book. I need to read something by Lovecraft, and it didn't look like the local library had much. I think I had actually read a Lovecraft story when I was younger. I think it was The Outsider in some anthology, but I didn't really remember that. Uh, so what I did is I went to the library and I got L. Sprague de Camp's biography of Lovecraft. And there's
Fantastic. Yeah.
two things about L. Sprague de Camp's book. Um, if you're worried about Lovecraft being a problematic figure, you get it all up front. It's just right there.
Yeah.
Going in, this is what's going to happen. But he also quoted enough segments of paragraphs of Lovecraft's work to make that actually to kind of catch my interest. And so that started me down the road of reading Lovecraft. And then I started reading the other authors who are writing for the mythos. And at this point, things are starting to get a little bit unwieldy because a lot of these books are just not available in a small Kentucky library. So I start buying some books. I start bringing it, ordering books from other libraries to their special service. And I so I start now putting together some notes on all of this. So I'm like, I got to get this to make sense somehow. And eventually, what happened is the summer after I graduated from high school, I started really putting together those notes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to collate these. I'm going to make this whole thing make sense. And also, I'm stuck in a small town in Kentucky, and I don't have anyone to talk to really. I have friends, but they're not as into the stuff as I am. So I kind of write it up, and then I get to college, and I'm like, I can't keep working on this. This is serious. This is college. I've got to, really buckle down and deal with this. And so I talked to Chaosium, who are the publishers of this game. I said, hey, are you interested in this at all? And Lynn Willis, who's passed away since, who's a great guy, wrote me back to say, send it here and maybe we'll put it on a shelf and look at it someday. That was the pitch. I'm like, this is good enough. That's all I need. And then I sent it. So I sent it in. I was like, okay, that's good. I can concentrate on school now. I can concentrate on meeting people, all this stuff. And then I get a letter back saying, well, actually, we passed this around. We want to turn this into a book. I'm like, what? And this was at the time when Chaosium was just thinking about starting they'd actually had a couple of fiction proposals. They were just starting this out. So I had no idea that they were going to have a fiction line. And they said, well, you could write this up. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do this. But then I said yes. And so I spent my first year and a half in college taking off potential roommates and working endlessly to write up a book and print it out, because that's what you did those days, and then sent it into Chaosium. And that was my first book when I was published when I was a sophomore in college. And it just, I just, was like, okay, I don't know what to do from here. But then I actually met somebody at a local radio station who had actually was an occultist who had done a spell because he was having trouble with people using the little black Simon Necronomicon paperback in magical senses, and he was concerned about this. So he did a spell to bring him a Lovecraft scholar, and then I showed up. So I think I think it failed because all he got was me. But at any rate, this then turns into another book, which is the Necronomicon files, and so it just kind of picks up from there. And at the same time, I have to pick what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I'm like, okay, I'm reading a lot of stories about anthropologists, and hey, that sounds like a thing that someone could be. So I decided to be an anthropologist because I'm reading all these stories. That did not quite work out the way I wanted to. I got a master's degree in it. But then I realized, I don't know if I'm really up for spending, years upon years overseas. That could be a little bit of an imposition. It may be a little, that may be more than I'm willing to commit right now. And so I went for another career option, which was librarian, which is also another very Lovecraftian sort of thing. And that's what I'm doing right now. And what I found is I was able to come in with, to my tenure track job with 2 books under my belt, some of which have been translated into, Japanese and Spanish and other languages. And it was just kind of it was amazing. So this book right here just kind of changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I don't know if that was necessarily for the better in all cases, but at least, it has made things a lot more interesting.
That's fascinating. So, did you ever get to play the game with your friends?
I think I did run the game a few times with my friends.
Okay, okay,
I ran it a bit in college. I'm running it a
okay.
bit now. But so yeah, it's also it's a fun game, but it's also a bit easy. It's hard to sell to people
Mm,
because a lot of people come into gaming with the sort of power fantasy where they want to,
yeah.
they want to level up and become more powerful and see how things go. And Call of Cthulhu is not about that. It's about like wrecking yourself in order to
Absolutely.
achieve a greater goal.
That's because I loved it so much playing it because you have to play it with experienced role players that have a lot of sense of morbid humor and have fun in portraying characters that degenerate and their mental health is falling apart and so on. And that's just and the atmosphere, as everything with Lovecraft, it's all about
Mhm.
atmosphere. And as everything with Lovecraft, I suppose it opens portals somehow.
Mhm.
And it
Yep.
opens a portal for you and your life. A
It,
great
it
story in itself.
it really has been amazing. Yeah, I would say that Call of Cthulhu is it's a humorous game, but the humor comes out of people reacting to whatever situation they were in and realizing, oh, let's try to figure out how to get out of it.
Yes.
And then it just degenerates from there. And it's, so there's a lot of aspects to the game that are kind of not on the page and people don't think about. It can indeed have like the degenerative piece, but it's not only just sanity, it's about people learning things
Mm.
and picking up spells and incantations and mastering them, which just makes things worse, but also solves some problems. So now you've got that aspect to it, which I think a lot of people kind of just want to push away, like, no, don't read the books. I'm like, come on, read the books. It's the best part of the game. That's where you actually get, that's where the most interesting stuff happens.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I am currently running it for a group of players, and we've been going for a while, and we'll see how they do.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
fantastic. So you got any new books coming out?
So one of the things I probably should have said is that the other thing that this whole Lovecraft piece started, was me starting to get into actual historical books of magic.
Mm.
So my most recent one is the Book of Four Occult Philosophers from Llewellyn, which is a like 600-page book of late 16th, 17th, and 18th century magic, and it's 17th, 18th, and 19th century magic. I got to be precise. That's because I'm a librarian. That's where that comes from, and it's just amazing. I also have just announced that I'm working on the fourth edition of the Encyclopedia Cthulhiana for Chaosium. So that is going to be out, eh, hopefully in a year or so,
Okay.
and it's going to be that I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to make it bigger and full color and much more scary. So
As it should be.
yes.
So you are opening portals for us and messenger of the old ones.
Yeah, I enjoy opening portals for people, then seeing what they do with them, which is not what I anticipate. And that's always the best part. Whether that is in, terms of writing about a topic or in terms of playing a game, it's always interesting what other people bring to the table. And I sort of see what I do as kind of facilitating that, whatever I'm doing. It's like, I don't know what to do with this, but I'm going to give it to you, and maybe you're going to see something I didn't see or take it in a new direction.
Mhm. Fantastic.
All right.
Daniel, that has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking your time. And I enjoy our conversation. Looking forward for maybe a next one.
Oh, excellent. That would be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice day.
You
The world
too.
is magic here.